after 300 years, 6 million Freemasons currently in the world today, and no one's been able to crack the secrets. In fact, it's been said more than once. Forget it. There are no secrets. Somebody would have found them by now. Okay. So with anthroposophy, for some unknown reason, anthroposophers have not taken it seriously, the interest that Rudolf Steiner had in Freemasonry. Okay. They believe he was anti-Freemason.
Well, he became a Freemason.
He clearly states in his autobiography towards the end of the book, I took the diploma. Okay. And he formed his own lodge, and it was called Mystica Eterna, Eternal Secrets. Okay. And that went on from 1906 to the First World War. Okay. So it wasn't 1 or 2 years. This went on for several years, but it was to an inner circle. Okay. But he was very clear about what he said about Freemasonry. He said it's a husk without a kernel.
Welcome to Anthroposophical Conversations, the podcast where we explore the transformative teachings of Rudolf Steiner and engage in insightful discussions with individuals studying anthroposophy.
Today in our Anthroposophical Conversations, we speak to Neil Tatham about Freemasonry and specifically seen through the lens of anthroposophy. Okay, so we are today here with Neil Tatham, who is an ex-advertising manager or advertising broke, marketing, big marketer into communication, entrepreneur, but also now on the committee of the Anthroposophical Society in Johannesburg, and a Freemason, which is what our conversation is about. And the question would be maybe just to tell us a little bit how you got into both those streams, which one came first, and obviously I'm going to lead to a question whether there's a conflict or how does it work. But tell us a little bit about yourself, how you got into these two streams.
Okay, yeah. First of all, I've always been interested in Freemasonry. I started at a very young age, and I knew nothing about it. And over the years, I was invited to join in the UK before I came to South Africa. And since I've been living in South Africa for the past 30 years, I've also had numerous occasions. And I think it's just fate that I've met Freemasons at particular times. And they've said, look, you're the sort of bloke that we think you do well as a Freemason.
How does that work? I mean, who approaches you? What is the process of getting into the Freemason? Is it initiation? Is it a kind of a secret brotherhood? Is it a secret society? What does it look like?
No, it's not actually a secret society. It's that old adage. It's a society full of secrets, but it's not a secret society. It's advertised. You can go on the web and find out where your local lodge is and what times they meet and where they actually meet. What you can't do though is actually see inside the lodge. Normally when the lodge is happening, they lock the door, and there's a reason for that too. But the question that you asked was, how did I get into Freemasonry? And what tends to happen is it might just be a chance conversation in a pub or over dinner or just meeting somebody in a business environment. And for whatever reason, conversation starts to move in that direction. And what a Freemason is looking for people that first and foremost are able to stand on their own 2 feet. That's what I would say. Each Freemason would have a slightly different interpretation. And then the other thing that they're looking for is morality. Is this person moral? Can I trust this person? So there's in a sense, there's a veiled filter when you meet somebody for the first time. What you're actually doing is you're assessing that person, particularly if you're a Freemason. Is this person a sound person? Can they stand on their own 2 feet? Are they a credible person? Are they an honest person? So it's all these virtues that pop into their heads, as it were. And then what happens is that they invite you to meet the other brethren from their lodges. And so you get to know that person, and that's the absolute key. And what people don't realize is that every lodge is different, and each lodge basically on a commonality. So, for example, I'm a member of English Freemasonry in South African North. We have over 100 lodges, and we have lodges which are predominantly people who ride motorbikes. We have another lodge where it's guys who are amateur pilots. Okay, so they've got a commonality to begin with, and that's what brings them together. And then the next step up would be: is this person trustworthy, moral, credible? And then you join their lodge after a period of time. Once you've got to know them, you've got to know their families. It's very important, by the way, that your partner is involved, even though in English constitution, women are not allowed to become Freemasons. There are female Freemasons, by the way, but in English constitution, it's not allowed. Okay, but it's very important you get buy-in from your partner. And many lodge Masons will actually go to a candidate's house and just talk to his wife. Nothing scary, and actually say to, do you realize your husband, he's said he might be interested in Freemasonry, but unfortunately we can't tell him what it's about. Okay. But that's the extraordinary thing. It's like, hang on, what am I joining if I don't know what it's about? And several months later, they say, right, such and such a date, you come along, wear a dark suit, and we're going to put you through your paces and initiate you. Okay.
Now you've been a member then, obviously, for many, many years.
No.
But you introduced when you were young, you said, but you only became a member when? How many years have you been a member?
I joined in 2014, so I've been a member for 9 years.
So you're an active member.
A very active member. But that's the other interesting thing. When you talk to other Freemasons, they will tell you there is a moment in time when you are ready.
Okay.
And that's very difficult to describe. What does that readiness mean? Now, clearly, I wasn't ready until I was 58 years of age.
Yeah.
As I said, I always had that interest, but something changed inside me, and I said, "Now I'm ready."
So the next question, especially for our audience, is, because you also got involved in anthroposophy.
Yeah.
So how long have you been involved in anthroposophy, and how did you get into anthroposophy? And what came first?
The chicken or the egg?
Yeah.
That's also a good question. Again, I was a late starter. I didn't get into anthroposophy until 2007. So that was 7 years before I became a Freemason. So again, I was in my 50s before I became a Freemason, before I became an anthroposopher. And what I tend to do is if I join something or I have an interest in something, then I really like to dig deep and find out as much as I can about that subject, or Masonry, what the work actually entails. So in 2007, I joined a reading group, Giwa Time Ames, and for the first year, I cannot remember one book that we read. Can't remember anything.
And a journey.
It was a journey, and then there was a light bulb moment, and I suddenly thought, wow, something at long last is woken up inside of me. Steiner talks about the ego, John Paul, when he was a young boy, and suddenly the ego arose in him. The same thing happened with Anthroposophy, I think, or certainly with myself, and the same thing with Freemasonry. There was another now moment, as it were.
And you do dig deep, because you've just now written a book on the Masonic Revelation, which tell us a little bit about it, because I've read it, it's a phenomenal book. Tell us a little bit about why did you write it and what it's about in a kernel, in a kind of a nutshell.
Okay. When I was initiated into Freemasonry in 2014, you go through the initiation, and afterwards And this happens with all lodges. The door is unlocked, the ritual work is finished, you then go for supper. We call it festive board. And at that festive board, what the candidate is requested to do is obviously stand up and say anything he likes. Normally it's a thank you, because there's that initiation ceremony, the participants, it's like a play act. They put a lot of work in, and it has to be, it's like a play, and it's done off book. So these people have to learn these words, and it's not normal English, as one of my pals said. It's not even fucking English, which is true. So there's a very strange words, but you have to learn them and rote. Anyway, at my initiation, I stood up and I thanked them for the evening, and it was quite a moving experience. And everybody, by the way, goes through exactly the same initiation, from the pauper to the kings of England. It's exactly the same initiation, has not changed. You start at the bottom and then you progress. And I stood up in the festive board, and I remember starting on the tact, which was, the reason I've joined Freemasonry is to find the secret. There's 6 million Freemasons in the world, and nobody knows the secret. It's been going since 1717, over 300 years, and nobody knows the secret. Okay, it's about time somebody finds it. But apparently I spoke at length. Now, I can't remember anything that I said, apart from that opening. I want to discover the secret.
But isn't it interesting? Isn't it interesting? I mean, would you say that you were pulled in by the mystery, by the secret? Do you think, just bring it from a personal point also to maybe kind of a broader spectrum, that somehow we've lost the mystery, or we still yearn for a mystery, or we're attracted to a mystery? I mean, would you say that you were attracted to the secret or the mystery? What appealed? What was the appeal? It couldn't have been buddy, I'm gonna, networking, a bit like the Bruderbond, I know you can give me a job. I don't know if it works like that, but I've now read your book, and for me, what really stands out is the secret, is this kind of very ancient mystery wisdom that went kind of underground, but it's got a long history, and that I still think is meaningful. I mean, we'll get back to that now in terms of whether it's still relevant. But do you think that that's what appeals to you? Is that what attracted you?
No. I asked the same question of Karen von Tilly. I started the book 5-6 years ago. And I always thought of Karen as my mentor. And she used to poo-poo and say, no, we're all equal. And I said, no, Karen, I've learned so much from you. And I see you as my mentor. And I told her what I was doing. And she said, it's your destiny. Accept it as your destiny. And I remember writing the first draft, 35 pages long, and I thought, that's it, I've finished. Brilliant piece of work. I went to Karen, and she said, it's very good. Okay, but the way she said it's very good, it's like, I think you've lost, you've left out a few bits.
So you went back to the drawing board, and you've done a few drafts, I would imagine.
9 times. Yeah, okay. 9 times. And I expect possibly a 10th or maybe 11th. Yeah.
But I mean, a large part of your book does try and unravel and explain the secrets or the symbolism and the development of human consciousness, for want of a better word. No?
What I didn't anticipate, well, first and foremost, you don't know anything about Freemasonry until you join. And even when you join, your first degree, your second degree, your third degree, what's actually happening is gates are opening. They're opening. And the first shock and surprise is that the first degree, most of it is done blindfolded, and it's about King Solomon's temple. And you think, hang on, that's biblical. And then you suddenly realize that all these different degrees are, there's a lot of Christianity in them. Okay. So if you have any understanding of or knowledge of the Bible, you kind of think, well, actually, I know this story, but they come at it from a different angle, as it were. But that's the first surprise that you get. This kind of, it's religion, and the first thing they'll tell you is we don't talk about religion and we don't talk about politics. Those are two golden rules in Freemasonry. Okay? We do not talk about those two things.
But yet you have the Templars, you have the Holy Grail. I mean, you know, these kind of themes seem to weave through your book and presumably through Freemasonry too. You know, I mean, you have that kind of history, and that's where I don't want to harp on the secrets of it, but the appeal or the allure, in a certain sense, that one needs or is drawn to this history, or this kind of, and I won't call it an underground history, but the mythology.
Okay, there's a couple of things that happen. The first thing that happens is, and this is me talking to other Freemasons, and they'll all basically say the same thing if they're committed Freemasons. I think it's something like 17% of people who are initiated drop out within the first year. And then only 60% of what's left become Master Masons. That's 1, 2, and 3, the third degree. Yet there's 33 degrees. Okay, so there is this pyramid that you're going up. There's this natural erosion, as it were. But normally around about the 5th, 6th year, what you'll hear from other Masons is, I changed. And then when you question what actually changed about them, they say, I don't know. But something changed. I can't put my finger on it, but something changed.
So it is, will you say it's a spiritual path of development?
There's no question it's a spiritual path. The person that's helped me put the book together, Anthony Higgins. Anthony and I have met every Saturday for 5-6 years now. And we've put a huge amount of work into that. So it's not just me, it's a combined effort, if you like. I said to Anthony, look, Anthony, I have to initiate it. Okay. I feel quite bad because I swore an obligation not to reveal any secrets. Before we go on any further, do you mind if we initiate it? And he said, no, it's fine. And Anthony was in his 70s then. So there's no barrier to age, as long as you're 21 plus. Okay? And at his festive board, what he said was, it was a spiritual experience. So he felt it more spiritually than what I did. My spiritual feeling came some years later, maybe 2 or 3 years later, but the average is around about 5 or 6 years to a committed Freemason, but they don't know what happened. Okay, but you can almost tell if you had a room full of men. I can almost point out the ones who are Freemasons, just the way they stand in the world. They stand with their feet anchored to the ground. They're solid people. You can't push them over. Yeah. They look at the world.
Some might say, and I'm just saying this, there might be an accusation because there's a hierarchy. Yeah, because you've got certain grades.
Yeah.
A question might be, how is Freemasonry, for example, different from Scientology?
I wouldn't know because I don't know anything about Scientology. What I do know about Freemasonry is that the ritual work, if a layman read the ritual, he wouldn't see anything in it which is difficult to grasp or controversial. There is nothing there. Okay? And that's the great secret. The people who put the ritual together did an absolutely brilliant job. And it's my contention in the book that it was the Rosicrucians. They put the ritual together. Now, before the early 18th century, the ritual had to be learnt by rote. It was only after 1813 that it was standardized. And thank goodness that the head of Freemasonry in the English-speaking world, the Duke of Sussex at the time, he brought in the cleverest men, cleverest Freemasons he could find, and he said, okay, chaps, go up and down the kingdom and gather all the ritual work together and standardize it. And in my opinion, they did a brilliant job, because if they didn't understand something, they didn't omit it, they kept it in the ritual. Mm-hmm. So we have a word like Cowan, for example, and it begins right at the start of a Masonic Lodge meeting. Why is a person standing outside the door armed with a drawn sword? And the ritual that goes on to say, to keep off all intruders and cowens to masonry. Okay, and nobody knows what a bloody cowan is. Okay, if you look at the extensive history, you will find a definition of a cowan. And the definition of a cowan, according to Freemasonry or Freemason, is a builder of dry stone walls. It's a Scottish, north of England term. Okay. Now, what you'll find in my book is that
you explain it.
Yeah, a cowan actually is the clergy from the Middle Ages until now, an espouser of religion or dry religion without spirituality. That makes absolute sense. It fits. Yeah.
So, what would you say is the purpose of Freemasonry? I mean, what is the objective?
Okay. Angela and I came to that conclusion maybe in the third year. It's actually Christ-centered spirituality. Okay. Now, if I said that to 6 million Freemasons, they would actually say, "Look, I'm sorry, Carl, you've been drinking too much," or
because it was also anti-church. I mean, you know, there was a perception that Freemasonry was anti-religion, anti-church, especially the Roman Catholic Church, I would imagine.
I'm actually giving a lecture, my first lecture to Freemasons tomorrow. Okay, and the revelation that will be given to them is the two spiritual streams that run through the world, and it's symbolized in Freemasonry as the two pillars, which we call Boaz and Jachin. And nobody knows what Boaz and Jachin mean. It's named after two individuals which you can find in the Bible, but these two pillars, what do they mean? It's actually the two streams. You look at a Mason's apron, he has these two strips. It's the two streams, and they represent Cain and Abel. And Freemasonry represents the Cain line, and 99% of the world represents the Abel line. Okay, and this will come out in the second book, by the way. It doesn't come out in the first book, but it will come out in the second book.
So I just want to get back to this, because when you talk about Christ as kind of a spiritual center, yeah? Was that the connection with anthroposophy? Because there will be anthroposophists, let me tell you, who's going to sit up and with their hair standing up on the back of their neck, saying the two are not compatible. The two streams are not compatible.
Anthroposophy and Freemasonry?
Yes. So my question to you is, are they compatible?
Yes. That's the Masonic Revelation. There has been so much revelation. Okay, and one of the revelations is that anthroposophers will be able to read the book quite simply. Yeah. Freemasons will actually have problems. They will find it difficult to read. It's not a narrative. It's not a bedtime story. There's no beginning. There's no denouement. There's no nice fluffy bit in the middle. But the revelation is that everything in Freemasonry can be explained from an anthroposophical point of view. Okay, just to give you an example, in the first book alone, I've quoted Rudolf Steiner's work 220 times. Okay, it could have been far more than that.
So do you think that anthroposophy for you, I mean, was a kind of a light that revealed or shone or made things more clear?
Yeah. There's no question.
Would you play it like, yeah, would you say that?
Yeah. So what happens in Freemasonry is we have this standard ritual. It's been going on for 300 years, and it's a bit like the growth of a lily. It sprouts, it grows, it flowers, it dies. It sprouts, you know. It's a continual cycle. It's the same with how Freemason's been kept alive for 300 years. Men come in, they're initiated, they're passed and raised, they're initiated, passed and raised, they die, and then another group of guys. So we're keeping alive the husk.
It's lost its meaning.
The kernel is there, and the kernel can only be found when you discover Josiah Bowring's tracing boards, and that's the revelation.
Okay.
That's the big wow.
And that's kind of what your book is about. I mean, you've got these three pictures.
Yeah.
And you basically unpack it. I mean, you explain, because it's obviously very symbolic. I mean, those boards are very symbolic, almost, there's kind of an esoteric knowledge there that you have pulled out, I would presume with the help of Anthroposophy, and then explain it. Would you say that that is a fair assessment?
Yeah. It's only through Anthroposophy. In fact, originally I thought of calling it the Masonic Revelation and in the light of Anthroposophy. But given that it's aimed at Freemasonry, but I've written it in such a way that the layman can actually read it too. Using the word Anthroposophy, I might lose my audience before the first page has been turned. So I decided not to use that word. But without Anthroposophy, it's impossible to find the secrets. So again, I've got to take one step back. What happened 6 years ago, I was in London. I went to see Freemasons Hall in London. This is the grand cathedral of English Freemasonry in the world. It's a magnificent building in the centre of London, beautifully built. Okay, and every room inside made by craftsmen. The main lodge downstairs, the doors weigh 2 tons, and a child of 3 can actually open. I mean, it's perfectly aligned, etc., etc. But whilst I was there, I had time on my hands. So I went into the museum, and again, beautifully displayed. And I was meandering, and for whatever reason, I stopped. I turned around, I looked down, and there was these 3 paintings by Josiah Bowen, and they're no bigger than a man's hand. They're over 200 years old. They were painted in 1819. They're recognized as the most exquisite tracing boards in Freemasonry, yet they've been put to one side. They just exist in this glass cabinet, which, by the way, is open. There's no lock to it. You can just open it and pull them out, and but they're exquisite. They're 200 years old, but it's almost as if they were painted yesterday. Nobody's ever been able to understand them, which is why they've been relegated. But just by looking at them, you know that this is the heart and soul of Freemasonry. And it's only because of my interest in and studying Rudolf Steiner's work, Anthroposophy, I suddenly thought, hang on a minute, those 3 posted down visuals at the top of that first painting, which is called Initiating, that's actually the stages of the earth. That's old Saturn, old Sun, old Moon.
So it was a light bulb moment for you.
Exactly.
And maybe that's why it's your destiny, in a certain sense, that Anthroposophy brought you to that library in front of that glass gate, to those boards, to make a connection.
Yeah.
It's wonderful.
And then from that moment, that's when I came back, and a few months went by, and I hooked up with Anthony, and we started talking about them.
Now, just to make it clear, I mean, Rudolf Steiner did, after the First World War, I think in 1918, he did say he stopped it. I mean, he closed that movement. I mean, that impulse. He just said, basically, for him, it was not relevant anymore in that format. I do think that he maybe have moved ritual and those exercises into another context. I don't know. I mean, I'm just saying that is, it's, in terms of Anthroposophy, that's a movement or an impulse that stops for Rudolf Steiner.
He closed the door.
Yeah,
he closed the door. He closed the door in terms of his own activity. That's my view. But typical Steiner, the door is never closed. Okay. He made it very clear we should take Anthroposophy out into the world. What's actually happened with me is that by stumbling across these 3 paintings, my destiny, and using Anthroposophy, I can unlock them. And what I realized eventually is that because of the time difference, these were painted in 1819 by an artist that was born in London in 1857. So this is 100 years before Rudolf Steiner. But there's no difference in what Steiner put in all his books and his lectures, which are not in those paintings.
Don't you think that maybe one of the reasons is that we are beyond the stage of secrecy? The Steiner actually made a very concerted effort to say nothing is secret anymore. That we are now in a in the consciousness soul where these secrets must be accessible and open to everyone.
Okay,
Or do you disagree with that?
no, absolutely not. No. This is the era in which those secrets now have to be revealed. As we know, this is the century in which our greatest foe is arrogance, materialism, okay, and certain secrets, I believe, need to be unfolded. Let me just explain to you what the tracing board is. First 3 degrees of Freemasonry, we have a painting in the middle of the room, and the candidate for the first degree is obviously showing the first painting. It's called initiating. The second degree is called passing, and the third degree is called raising. Okay. Now, there have been many different tracing boards over the years. In fact, if you go back before 1813, before everything was standardized, what used to happen, where Freemasons met, somebody would use a chalk, and he would chalk these symbols on the floor, and then it was his responsibility to erase them, wipe it off. They then it's like all these things. Modernization, you could say, kicked in.
The printers.
Exactly. And this is what happened. And they standardized the ritual, they standardized the paintings. The tracing board tells a story. Okay. And because there were so many of these different tracing boards, roughly with the same elements, and there were a few key painters at the time, Cole, Brown, Jacob, and Bowring was one of them. Bowring was the finest. Okay. There was another guy called Harris. And Harris was a facsimile artist. A facsimile artist is a copyist. He was made a Mason when he was 27, but how he earned a great deal of money was by doing odd jobs for the Duke of Sussex, the Grand Master of English Freemasonry. And the Duke of Sussex had a beautiful library, and he was very proud of it. And some of those books needed repairing. Okay, particularly the illustrations.
And that's where he copied.
And Harris came in, and Harris did that work. Harris, within a couple of years, was actually doing tracing boards. And he was selling them to the lodges, and people were saying, well, if the Duke of Sussex is buying from him, it must be right. Okay. But what he was doing, because he was a copyist, he was taking the nice bits, if you like, from Bowring's work and this, that, and the other, and he made these beautiful pictures. But all they are is fanciful art. So then there was a competition in 1845, and he won that competition. Okay, and out of all the tracing boards, they chose his. He modified them 4 years later in 1849, and to this day, in every English constitutional Masonic lodge, they use his tracing boards. Okay, the fanciful art. So what the Masons then did was they created a story around this fanciful art. Okay, which is meaningless. So you have the ritual where it's full of clues, spirituality, and then the tracing board, it doesn't connect. Okay. But if you put Bowring's tracing boards there through the light of anthroposophy,
all makes sense.
It all makes sense.
And you don't feel that you are exposing secrets that you're not supposed to. You feel that you are contributing towards what? Is it a contribution, or are they going to cut your head off?
That's a very good question. It has been worrying me. I've taken it, but each degree, you take a solemn obligation to conceal and never reveal. I'll always hail, conceal, and never reveal. But what they don't tell you is, who the hell am I hailing? What am I concealing? And what am I revealing?
And you call it Masonic Revelation. So presumably, whoever reads your book would want to have some insight, the secrets exposed, for want of a better word.
Well, this is where I have to put a question mark in my own mind. If I've promised, sacredly, I will not divulge any of these secrets, but no one's told me what these secrets mean, okay, and I found out myself, am I only supposed to reveal it to Freemasons, or can I let it be known to the rest of the world?
And in a certain sense, Anthroposophy has already revealed those secrets.
Exactly.
It's not a secret anymore. It's not secret. So
Effectively, what you've got, you've got 6 million Freemasons out there who are 6 million, without knowing it, anthroposophists in the making. Okay,
I love the way you say it.
That's what they are. Once they understand what the ritual really is all about, Christ-centered spirituality, they're going to go, wow. Okay. Well, not all of them, because most of them will. They believe Freemasonry is it's a charitable organization. It's about fraternity. It's about men getting together with similar ideas.
But let's get to for me, one of the main questions, and perhaps just to kind of summarize or to wrap up, the idea of ritual. Okay. Do you think that we live in a society or an age or a time where we have this lost touch? What is the importance of ritual is the first question. And have you found that Freemasonry gives you a sense of ritual, not only in the blindfolded initiation process, but in your life?
The importance of ritual is that it works at the soul level. It's working much deeper down. And as I mentioned, Freemasons get to their 6 years and they suddenly say something's changed. What's actually changed is that their soul, the roughness has been smoothed off. In fact, we have two assets, two stones in Freemasonry. One is rough and one is smooth. And you can see the progression. Okay. What they don't realize is working at the soul level. The words that we use, and some of those words are hiding great meanings. But as I said, they keep them in the ritual. They're being said, and it's a little bit like hearing a hymn sung in a cathedral. It doesn't matter whether you know what the words mean or not. It's the feeling. It's a much deeper level. That's what's actually happening. Now remember, Freemasons are men of this world. We're not theologians. We're not devout men in a sense. We carry on and do what men do in the world, which is jobs, have families, go to the pub, whatever it is. So we are just normal men. But the spirituality is working. But it's not about this lifetime. It's really about the next lifetime. It's actually preparing your soul for the future incarnation. Again, if I said that to a Freemason, they would laugh. They would find me another drink.
No, but for anthroposophists, I mean, we have that context, so it is not a. I also want to ask you one, just maybe also, don't you think that also apart from the ritual that's missing in modern society, this idea of brotherhood, where you see the other, where you have a connection with the other, and if it's then in a society like Freemasonry or Anthroposophy, surely there's also some benefit and some work to be done, or some revelations to experience in that what is between you and you.
Unfortunately, you've got to get a little bit older before the spirituality starts to kick in. I'll give you a good example. I was privileged to initiate my own son. He was initiated when he was 25. I asked him whether he wanted to be a Mason when he was 18. You can join if you're at 18, 3 years before 21, which is a norm, if your father is a Mason. You're known as a Lewis. He didn't want to know. Anyway, eventually, several years later, he said, okay, now I'm ready. Okay, and I thought that was wonderful. Okay. I initiated him. Okay, he thought it was a wonderful experience. He's now living in the UK, and for the past year, he hasn't been to a lodge. Okay, I don't think he's ready yet. Okay, he's still a man of this world. He's still doing what young men do, and that's wonderful. And he must continue and do that. And I'm hoping that in sometime in the future he'll want to come back, but it must be his decision. It can't be mine. Okay. And I think what will happen, and I will ask him if he does come back, what made you come back? And it will be something deep down which he probably can't put his finger on, and it will be that spirituality again.
So it's a spiritual path.
It's a spiritual path. Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, so I mean, maybe just two questions. So just a bit of blurb on your book, promote it a little bit. Where can we get it? When is it going to be published? What are your plans with it?
Okay, The book that I've written, currently it's in London, at Cato Coronati, which is the main it's the main Masonic research lodge in the world. It goes back to 1886. I've sent it to them, and I've asked for them to peer review it for me. They have members throughout the world. It's a very deep thinking organization. I was lucky enough to attend one of their meetings in London. That's when I actually found the painting. So I had a few hours to spare before the lodge meeting took place. There were 10 men in that room with PhDs. So I felt quite undressed, mentally undressed, as it were. Anyway, so it's with them for peer review. I'm not wanting or wishing to publish it at this moment in time.
Clearly waiting to another draft, perhaps.
No, I think there'll be improvements still to be made, and hopefully that will come through people like yourself, anthroposophists. There are certain anthroposophists I've given it to, and I'm waiting for their comments. But also at the same time, you have to remember that the first book is only on the first painting. Yeah. I'm now working on the second painting. Hopefully it won't take
5 years, I hope.
5 or 6 years.
Please.
No.
Please. So on that note, I mean, we were talking about ritual, we were talking about the spiritual path. And for me, that possibly points to, the meaning of anthroposophy. But I will ask you in your words, how do you see anthroposophy? What is your connection? And where do we take it? What is needed in this world right now?
That's an excellent question. And it's answered so beautifully in Freemasonry without them realizing it. In Freemasonry, we have these two pillars, Jachin and Boaz, or Boaz and Jachin. Those are the two spiritual streams. And it's only when you read the two books that Steiner, where it talks about Freemasonry, that those two streams are actually clear. Now, the world really, at this moment in time, has gone down the Jachin stream, the priestly stream, as it were. The other stream, which I mentioned, is the Cain stream. Under Cain, what you'll find is the following people and organizations. You'll find Mithraim, who's the first king of Egypt. But under Cain, you'll have Noah. Noah then is split between his two sons. You have Ham and Shem. We follow the Ham line. Then it's Mithraim, who's the first king priest of Egypt. Then it's under him you have Ormus. After him comes Alexander the Great. Alexander the Great, you have Ormus and St. Mark. Then you have Mani next. Then the Knights Templars. Then the Rosicrucians. And by the way, Bowring was a Rosicrucian, he was invisible. And then the Anthroposophists, and then Freemasonry. And it's all down the Cain or the Boaz line. And on the opposite side, which is the Jachin line, that's the three great monotheistic religions. King Solomon, before that, it's Abraham, the patriarchs, and the modern churches that we have today. And Freemasonry says it quite beautifully, actually. When the two conjoined, stability. Okay, and what conjoins the two is Christ. Yeah. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you for joining us on this insightful adventure. We look forward to welcoming you to Anthroposophical Conversations, where together we will unlock timeless wisdom and discover new horizons of understanding. Stay tuned for our upcoming episodes as we unravel the secrets of the human experience and delve into the extraordinary world of Rudolf Steiner's Anthroposophy.